This is Inside the Right. Tim, the Republican gubernatorial candidate in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, has been exposed for reportedly advocating for slavery, called himself a black Nazi, praised Mein Kampf, that was the most recent one. And yet, on Thursday, when all of these scandals bubbled to the surface, he actually had the opportunity to drop out. I believe that was the last day that he had to do so, and he didn't take that opportunity. And in fact, Donald Trump and the North Carolina GOP rallied around him. The interesting part of this is that there is a similarity with what happened with him and what happened with Biden. Biden was weighing Democrats down and he stepped aside, and now we have a candidate who's ascendant in the polls. So did Republicans just miss a massive opportunity to do exactly what the Democrats did in the wake of Democrats doing it?
Yeah, they did, but the Democrats are still a responsible governing party, and there are people around that can push, that could use their weight, like Nancy Pelosi, to kind of make those sorts of arguments. The Republicans aren't that. Like, they're a cult. Like, the only way to get rid of them would have been for Trump to throw him overboard.
Right.
And Trump doesn't ever admit error. Trump had already compared him to Martin Luther King on steroids and Martin Luther King 2.0, which is kind of ironic because on the porn message board that Mark Robinson frequented, he talked about how he hated Martin Luther King and how he called him Martin Lucifer, and then a racial slur, and then a commie bastard as well. And so, without Trump pushing him out, there's really no vehicle to do it. It's funny when you said it is reminiscent of. I thought you were going to say something else. It's reminiscent of Roy Moore. Like, for people that were around and paying attention to this stuff back in 2018, Roy Moore was just this like horrifically homophobic candidate in Alabama that the Republicans had put up for Senate, and it came out that he had practiced like kind of sex with underage girls when he was younger, and so like he was a disaster of a candidate, just like Mark Robinson is a disaster of a candidate, and there was like this sense that the Republicans are going to be able to push him out, and they never did, and the Democrats ended up winning that Senate seat. Doug Jones was the Democratic senator from Alabama for a couple of years, just because the Republicans had botched it so bad, and this is like very reminiscent of that.
Right, but even then, I mean, that offers a test case in terms of what happens when you have such a fatally flawed candidate. But not only with Roy Moore, we also have recent history. We also have all of the candidates in 2022, Don Bolduc, Doug Mastriano, Carrie Lake, who's your personal favorite, Dr. Oz, Herschel Walker. All of these people ran behind other Republicans, and all of them lost.
Yeah, and it's been happening for a little while now. And this is the thing. It's just people ask me often when I, talk about this, like, are the Republicans going to learn their lesson? Is there enough losing to learn their lesson? And it's like, obviously not. Like, this is a Republican, well, it's a two problem. It's a Donald Trump problem, and it's a Republican voter problem. Like, Republican voters want the person that is the most anti-establishment, the most anti-social. They want the things that they're looking for in candidates is, one, how loyal are you to Donald Trump? Two, how much do you own the libs? Three, how much of a non-politician are you? Right. And so if those are the qualifications that they're looking for, like, it is going to attract insane sociopaths. Right. Because like you don't have to have like traditionally both parties, the Democrats still work like this. To be a politician, you have a resume, right? You either served your country in the military or served your community in some way, or you're a business leader, something, right? And Republicans don't want that now. Republican voters aren't looking for that. And so what they're attracting is these weirdos who know that all they have to do is put on the red hat and say obnoxious things and be cruel to the left and say Donald Trump was the greatest thing of all time, and they'll get to like shoot to the top of the list. And so like the result of that is you end up with all the people you named, but like there are even more. If you go down to the House, George Santos, Madison Cawthorn, I'm a MTG, these are all ridiculous humans. Like in no responsible party would they be nominated. But right now, it's sort of it's like moths to a flame, right? Like the party is attracting crazy. Like they're the flame, and the crazy people are the moth. And they're like, well, man, I can become a congressperson if I just put on the red hat. And so this is going to keep happening like until the Republican voters like start sending a message of different incentives.
Well, Tim, like even deep down, even for these people who are just the most hardcore Republicans you can possibly find, the most hardcore Trump acolytes you can possibly find, at some point, they would still want to exercise some degree of power. So is there going to come a point where they recognize that, okay, we have to be strategic as opposed to this zero sum absolutist position on just finding the most anti-establishment person possible?
I mean, at some point, yeah, you would
We're
think
clear.
so,
I mean,
but
I guess if we're not there, if they keep doing it in election cycle after election cycle, that's clearly not it's clearly not a priority for them right now.
yeah, I mean, look at I'm from Colorado. Look at Colorado. Like the Republicans haven't won anything in forever in Colorado. And last time for the governor's candidate, they put up a woman that was running around talking about how there's cat litter boxes in the
Schools,
classrooms.
yeah.
And like that's the prime thing, like this crazy conspiracy theory. Right? Like yeah, sure. At some point, something will change in our politics, the incentives will change, and Republican voters will come to their senses. But to be honest, like right now, it's not what they're doing isn't irrational. If what they're looking for is people who are going to burn things down. And that's what this is. Like it's not a conservative party. It is a radical party of people that want to burn down the government and put their thumb in the eye of the elites and the left and so and it's kind of like it's not working in the sense that Joe Biden is the president, right? But it's a close election.
Yeah.
Like this, they very likely could win the Senate or the House or the presidency. Like all three are still possible for them. They're probably the favorites in the Senate and slight underdogs in the House and the presidency. So it's not because of how polarized our country is, because of gerrymandering, because of all these other issues that we talk about. Like they're not getting like annihilated, right? This is not like the last time a party really changed was 92 when the Democrats pivoted to the center, strategically changed. Donald Trump changed the Republican Party, but the last time before that a party strategically changed was Clinton in 92 for the Democrats. The Democrats had gotten slaughtered in 80 and 84 and 88. Like those elections weren't even close. They were massive blowouts. Like that's not what has happened for the Republicans because of how polarized we are. So yeah, I mean, eventually they will, but to me, I see this happening again in 2026. I mean, like, it wasn't like there weren't enough red flags on Mark Robinson. I mean, sure, we didn't know that he was posting "I'm a black Nazi" on porn sites and going every night to porn stores with a pizza and sitting in the back room. Like, so we didn't know that like he spent most the preponderance of his free time with porn. But like we did know that he had bankruptcies, that he was a Holocaust denier, that he like he had all these extreme positions on abortion and LGBT issues. So like they knew and they picked him.
Yeah. I'm curious because you have somebody like Mark Robinson who is so overtly flawed as a candidate. Like you said, a Holocaust denier, has called for a complete and total abortion ban with no exceptions whatsoever. That's just he's attacked Martin Luther King Jr. before this latest tranche of evidence that he's attacked Martin Luther King Jr. So the depravity of this guy isn't lost on anybody. Who is going to look at this new slate of evidence against him and decide that the guy who had done all of this disqualifying stuff in the past was okay, but now it's not okay?
Yeah, I think that there may be two categories of people. For some, and this is what I think you're hoping for if you're Kamala Harris, that there's some category of people in North Carolina that are just like, these guys are too crazy. I'm just not gonna bother this year.
Right.
I'm taking this year off. I
Just
think
just
about
straight up straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Just like I wasn't happy about Trump or Robinson anyway. Again, this is a minority of the Republican Party, but if it's 9-10% of the party, that's a hugely significant group.
I mean, if
And so
it's 3% of the party, that's a hugely significant group.
exactly. Exactly. So I do think that there's some people, I kind of, think I'm like in my mind that I'm thinking of like archetypes of, conservatives in my life who don't like Trump, but like, have gone along to get along. Some of them just might look at this ticket and they're just like, this is too crazy. These people are too sick. Like, and I'm not going to vote at all. And then I do think you have other kind of like, particularly in the college educated business guy kind of archetype. Governor is a real job, like there are some
Yeah.
people that work with the state and have business with the state, like mid to higher income people. they might be like, oh, I'll send the crazy guy up to the Senate because who cares? And because I hate liberals, right? Like, I'm not defending that. I'm just saying, like, that's a rational choice. The
And by the way,
governor,
there are still 99 other senators to drown that person out if they're too crazy.
exactly. The governor's a real job. They're going to be governor of the state. I'm a small business owner. I'm a taxpayer. I send my kid to public schools, right? Like there are a lot of practical reasons why you could see somebody that's traditionally Republican in North Carolina that was probably not going to vote for him anyway, seeing this and being like, "Ah, we're just going to put in Josh Stein. Like this person, like we can't have Black Hitler like running the state of North Carolina." And
Yeah.
there are already those people existed because I mean it's crazy for me even so surely for the viewers of this channel to like wrap their head around this, but before to this revelation there were like it was like what 6 7 8% of the electorate was saying they're going to vote for Trump and Stein. Like
Yeah.
these people already existed, so now so that we know that that type of voter exists. And I do think that you can just kind of expand that number, and hopefully for Kamala Harris, which is why you see her running the ads around this, you can nudge some subsample of that to just say a pox on both your houses.
Right. And by the way, given the work that you do at the Bulwark with Sarah Longwell, voters are weird. And so it's not completely, I know it feels weird for viewers of this channel, especially to look at somebody and say, how could you possibly be a Josh Stein, Donald Trump voter? But there are lots of people like that. And
Yeah.
they're there election after election where somebody's first choice might be Trump and their second choice might be Pete Buttigieg and their third choice might be Bernie Sanders and their fourth choice might be Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, there's some unusual voters out there. You see them in the Sarah Longwell focus groups. It's
Yeah.
like, what are you thinking? I got so you have to think about that. But I do think in this case, well, Robinson's dead in the water. I mean, this is a Roy Moore, Doug Mastriano situation. Like, this
Yeah.
is not going to happen. So the question is, can he bring down Trump? That's not usually how these things work, right? Like, usually the top of the ticket weighs down the bottom of the ticket, or boosts the bottom of the ticket, depending on how strong the candidate is, and then for the highest office, the most famous person in the race. But in this case, Harris is already out with ads on this. I know that Sarah Longwell and those folks over at Arvad are going to be doing this. Like, are there ways to just kind of, make the whole party toxic for some of these people that are not hard partisan Republicans, that are like traditional, they've been Republicans, but they have lives, they have kids, they haven't paid attention, and they're just like, you know what, this year, it's just one year, right? Like these two, like Trump with the insurrection and Black Hitler, like, like it's just enough is enough, right? And so I think that that is realistic for Harris to kind of get another point or squeeze another point or two out of that, which I mean, Biden only lost North Carolina by a point.
Right. Well, to that exact point, then, and we'll finish off with this, doesn't the fact that you have such two extremists on the ballot in Mark Robinson and Donald Trump, neither one of whom offers anybody who's not an extremist, any normal, longstanding, like Reagan conservative, usually if you have somebody on the ballot who's worth coming out for, if it's not Donald Trump, then maybe it's a gubernatorial candidate who's normal, or vice versa. If you have an extreme gubernatorial candidate, maybe you hope for somebody on the top of the ticket who's worth coming out for. But when you have two people who are just outgunning each other to see how extreme they can be, doesn't that lower the likelihood that those people will actually bother turning out? Because if it's between Donald Trump, who right now is turning into a
Hot
dumpster
mess.
fire, hot mess, and Mark Robinson, who's come out as Black Hitler, then there really isn't any down ballot or up ballot reasons
Yeah.
to get off the couch.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, so there are two categories of people, right? Like, in some way, in a weird, perverted way, like for MAGA voters, like there might be kind of like a rally around your man kind of thing for these two, right? Because they're just getting so trashed by the national media.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it will turn out with like the MAGA base, but there is that next category over, and I'm not even really talking about the Haley voters, right? I'm talking about like the DeSantis. Like if you just remember the primary, right? I mean, Trump was, getting about 50%, 60%, in various places, and then we talked a lot about the Haley people, which is like that 15%
Yeah.
that gets you to 75. There was another 20% that was like voting for DeSantis, or and that's the intriguing voter for me. That it's like that person was aware enough of Trump's flaws to say that they're not going to be with them in a primary.
Yeah.
Is pretty conservative, but is not a MAGA like, oh, I love Trump so much person, right? That person is almost all the time, not all the time, but many of them are not going to like Mark Robinson, right? Like they're not signing up for that. It's too stupid. It's too crazy. It's too
Right.
obnoxious. Might some of those people just say, I'm taking off this year. I'm going to go to the, I'm going to, we're just going to kind of whatever do, we're going to go to the golf course today and we'll see y'all in 2026.
Right.
I think I do. I think that that's possible.
Yeah. Well, look, I think two things. First is that if and when Mark Robinson loses, it'll give him a little bit more time to follow his passion a little bit, which is to log on to these sites and just do his thing. The second is that for those exact kind of Republicans, I think that that's why the work that you guys do at the Bulwark is so important.
No, when you're saying those kind of Republicans, you're not talking about the Republicans that spend all day on porn message boards and eating pizza in the back room
on Nude Africa. Yeah, no, different kind of Republicans. I'm talking about the gettable Republicans out there who are not logged on to porn sites all day. But for the rest of those Republicans or independents looking for something of a permission structure to know that just because you've voted Republican in the past doesn't mean that you have to vote Republican now. That's why the work that Tim and his colleagues over at the Bulwark are the work that they do is so important right now, because there's very few outlets that are doing what they do. And so it's incumbent on the rest of us in the YouTube space, in the progressive media ecosystem, to elevate that kind of content, to kind of draw those people away. So I'll put the link to the Bulwark right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.